Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the GIJoe killer whale. So, as we look at this, the whale, referring to the warrior hovering assault launching envoy, is the Joe's multi-purpose hovercraft and amphibious operations. With a hull plating with a hull plating and nylon mesh titanium alloy armor. It is deployed by GI Joe for offshore, over the beach, and inshore. Example: rivers, marshlands, swamps, and engagements. Really, a good counterpoint to like the Cobra Moccasin or the Cobra Moray. This is Joe's brown water navy counterpart here. So featuring on the machine, we have the killer whale has a crew complement of four. So we have a pilot, a navigator slash gunner on the flying bridge, plus two turret gunners. So really, you could do it with one, but you're not going to be shooting any guns. If it's a river or a system that you're kind of used to, otherwise, for our navigator slash gunner, you're going to be operating the main cannons as well as your depth charges. And then we have two turret gunners, but also serves as a landing craft for those cabin accommodated. Uh, we have a four-man insertion team that can fit inside the cabin here. Although I know the cartoons are always kind of funny in that regard, because they'll always kind of like any other vehicle. If they need a way for Cobra Commander to get out of an area, he'll jump into a back seat somewhere that was never there, and suddenly they're gone. Um, Same thing I know has happened with the killer whale. So if you just say it's a four-man team that can ride inside, or it's that same four-man team that would be operating the machine, that's their kind of bunk area. Either way you want to look at it. Um, we do have a limited. Um, let's see. Um, it can traverse water fully loaded at 35 knots with an operational range at 240 nautical miles. It can only move about 25 miles an hour. Um, the aft dual fans, the rudders are capable of pivoting almost 180 degrees, pivoting angle steering. The steel mesh nylon composite skirt can absorb up to light machine gun damage. The skirt can be repaired using onboard specialized, essentially duct tape. 100-mile-an-hour tape works wonders. I've heard that in actual real life scenarios, they have actually used 100-mile-an-hour tape on the rotor blades of Blackhawks and flown them back to base. So there are possibilities here. The whale, only weighing about 8.5 tons, can be loaded by ship crane, but consumes a lot of fuel and is unfit for long-term engagements, which is really the big drawback for hovercraft. They just eat up a lot of fuel. Luckily, the forward hold has room for extra fuel bladders, and the craft can be replenished at sea. Um, it is powered by twin high output HO or SC5 HO diesel engines. For people that are very technically savvy and know what that is, I honestly don't know what those types of engines are. Okay, diesel engines. The whale's cabin can be topped or is topped with twin crow's nest turrets, each mounting a 50 caliber Thrasher anti-aircraft machine gun. Um, I'm going to say it's probably the old Ma Deuce. I know this is their terminology. Uh, Being an infantryman myself, and we had a 113 and we had a 50 cal. It was an old Ma Deuce 50 caliber machine gun. The craft's primary armaments, controlled by the navigator slash gunner, include two forward firing 105 millimeter pounder cannons and two quad sandbox launchers that fire short range anti ship, anti armor missiles. The whale also has a limited Uh, ASW capability thanks to the aft starboard ramp rack that results in SD-30 depth charges, and I mentioned those before, with 100-pound high explosive charge pressure sensitive detonators. Uh, the whale the whale's forward hold cabin launch uh, has a launch for a one-man reconnaissance jet sled that can attain a max speed of 25 knots at the range of about 30 nautical miles. The jet sled impeller-driven motor maintains communication by using a mini-watt type low-frequency directional radio. Aft port between the gearbox fans and stows a light LH-66 scooter for off-board surveillance. Um, so these are all the nice little things that I remember having part of this. I didn't have the full thing. I had always wanted to. Um, this was, in a lot of regards, for a lot of kids, this was essentially having a portable Joe base all of its own. Um, Now, when we take this and then we look at the stats that I've done on this for bringing this into like the Star Wars, like I said, this is a world where maybe a Star Wars ship has crashed land, and um, we're seeing that they've reverse engineered and then they've brought all this stuff into here. So um, I'm kind of sitting here seeing they're able to use better technology so they don't have to worry about the fuel as much. So fuel, we're not going to worry about. Armaments being the laser cannons and all everything. These are things that now we can do that we were relying on everything else. So the things I came up with here. So this is going to be at speed or scale. That could be argued back and forth because it is kind of heavily armored, but you'll see with our body strength, I think it kind of makes up for it. Now, length is 35 feet long, has a crew of 1 and 3 gunners. We have 8 passengers because I remember them having a little bit more room inside there, so I gave it a 8 passenger capacity, if I can say that correctly here, with an additional 2 tons worth of cargo. You could put the cargo on the hull somewhere or whatever else. Now, this is full coverage for everyone. You could argue that for the topside gunners and the pilot, maybe being a 50% coverage either way. It is ground level. Maneuverability, I gave it a 1D. Yeah, you can kind of spin it around, but relying on the fans, you always have to be kind of moving here. So I didn't make it the most maneuverable. Trying to keep it at about a 25 mile an hour speed. So I equated that to like 4. So you're moving about 4 spaces per turn. Body strength, I gave it a 6D. So if this was a Walker scale, that would knock it down to a 4D. So I think that's pretty good. Trying to compensate here. Maybe it's a little high, maybe it's not. This is where I kind of decided to put it. I know that in other articles they've talked about really the whale is kind of like I said before, almost like a base unto itself. It's like a tank, a hovering tank. So that's why I kind of did what I did. Now, heavy blaster cannons. Um, these are 2 main cannons. Being in the front here, speed or scale, fire control is a +2 because I'm putting the person standing right next to the pilot in the pilot station here. So you're kind of guessing a little bit. Now, not saying that you couldn't specialize and become very proficient at it. That's just where I kind of left it. Damage being 7D. I figured that's, these are tank cannons. We have 2 twin auto blasters. Now this is at speeder scale, fire control of 2D, damage is 4D. But if you're shooting at people, now it's going to be 6D. So keep that in mind. But you're also losing some of that fire control. The 2 quad missile launchers. has a fire control of 1D. There again, because you're standing next to them, it's not like you've got, if you want to argue and say that they actually have a computer console in there and they're using, go for it, and it may be up this. But otherwise, I'm saying it's a 1D fire control. It's going to take a little bit of work. Someone's going to have to really kind of get specialized at this. But there again, the missiles are doing 7D damage. And then we have 8 depth charges. So, and this is just being thrown off to the side. Again, it's a fire control of 1D because you're just kind of kicking it out there, and it's not the most precise. There again, if you're getting really skilled at this, even with something that's not as overly precise, someone can get very good at it and doing about 7D damage. So that's what I'm looking at here. This is our first GIJoe vehicle that we've done in this series. We're going to hit many more. And as I had said before, when I was doing this, I was trying to go through by the years. So I'm hoping that this is the way I'm doing it. It doesn't matter. These are already all kind of done up. Just bringing to you what I've created. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, feel free to let me know. Like I've said before, I could take what you're saying and say, yeah, that might make more sense. Because I'm not going to sit here and say I have all the answers. It's just my best guess to try and fit this in. And again, this would be either if you have the West End Games Star Wars, you could put it in with that, or if you're running this as when West End Games came back as a D6 Adventure series, this would work pretty well. You might have to change some of the names of what they have here a little bit here and there, because I do a lot with the Star Wars and I have so much more for Star Wars. I'll just leave it in the Star Wars setup and then go from there. And that's why I'm doing it the way I am. So it's fun bringing this to you. This is completely all off on my own creation. So, taking the Hasbro GIJoe and bringing it into a Star Wars universe, here we are. And likewise, I think if I was going to bring some of the other stuff, I might do something similar of here's a system or whatever that is now doing things in this way and why it's different and maybe why we haven't seen them in the greater Star Wars, because it's out in the outer rim somewhere and it's just them off on their own. But another wonderful vehicle. I know as a child I always wanted to have this. I got parts of it, nothing complete, and it was wonderful when I had done it and my kids had played with the set, and it was never complete, but I know that they had fun with it too. Happy to bring it to you with my interpretation into bringing it into the Star Wars universe. And we'll see you in the next video.